Am I in the shot for frick shake? Am I folky? Folky pokey. Okay, let's not begin on a racial slur that hasn't even been invented yet, but will be a couple years from now, and then people will think that that's what I was saying. I wasn't saying that racial slur yet. It hasn't been popularized yet. I mean, yeah, technically, I used it as a slur. It's just not popular yet, so it doesn't count because I made it because it's in my head. You didn't know that that's what it was. I just revealed to you that that's what it was, and I am the one probably responsible for setting off the causal coinage of that word. I probably am responsible indirectly for conceiving of that future racial slur by planting the seeds into the internet. Excuse me for planting the seeds into the substrate of the internet. The internet is never wrong. Has it ever been wrong about what to keep on it? No. Has anything good ever left the internet? No, because it's the best substrate of all languages. Okay, so this is the Tim Weichelblum show. My name is Timothy Bluchelbaum. Because there's a long story, because, why the causation loop on that one is very, very convoluted. Let's just say that the reason I have such a complicated name is because all the other good ones were taken. Like John Appleseed. That's a good name. But did he get the name after he became an Appleseeder? Because I'm pretty sure he was only famous. How the hell does that work? How do you become John Appleseed if you've never even... if you haven't reached your destiny as Johnny Appleseed, you haven't distributed any apple seeds, yet that's your name. He was one of those guys who was created by God, who just, like Jesus. You don't hear about how Jesus got his good looks, anything about him. You just know that his name was Jesus. He was born out of a woman's body. But you don't hear nothing about his early years, like when he was 25. His early years, his early dumb fuck early 20s, when he had roommates. You don't hear about that because it was scrubbed from history, because it's embarrassing, man. Nobody wants to see a late teen version of Jesus when he had this awkward, horrible facial hair, yet he thought he could pull it off because he wasn't really Jesus yet. Yeah, he didn't know he was even Jesus yet until he was like 30. That's when he started doing cool shit. He only had like 3.5 years to do all that shit, and I didn't even know how many years it was at the time because they weren't even keeping track of how many years it was until after he died. Then they retroactively said, okay, let's just start it off with now. Okay, so you're 33 or something, when he died. So they didn't even freaking know how old he was when he was in his early 20s. We just had to go by his puberty behavior, by the way he behaved. We know he was old enough to get people pregnant, puberty. By that age, he was doing embarrassing stuff. Like if you could scroll up on his iPhone and see all the dumb pictures of him hanging out, playing dumb games, pranks. He was a prankster. He was just as bad as all those pranksters on YouTube that just want to get attention on YouTube. He was that guy. But then he became Jesus, because it does matter. God just selected him way after he was already born to be like, okay, this guy will be the Christ. He'll be the Son of God. I don't care what the hell he's been doing his whole life before this. Carpenter, that'll come in handy to create probably some kind of alchemy, sorcerer's, philosopher's stone, which is where he probably got his power. He probably did have like a magic wand that he built himself in a woodshed. And that's why they say he was a carpenter, because that's how he got the abilities to call himself the next Christ. To call himself a prophet, it just came by just being a carpenter. He got a little bit, he got a little smarter as he grew up. And when he was in his 20s, he got really good at carpenting. He was already doing it as a kid. Anyway, and then he got good at it enough to where he just started figuring out stuff that went beyond anybody else's capabilities. And he built he built a flying, who knows, a magic wand. Moses had one too. You hear about his walking stick. That was the same thing. It's an enchanted thing that he was magic. But what does magic mean? There's no such thing as magic. It was technology that goes beyond our understanding. It was syncing up with something in quantum physics. It was taking something that's very small and making it macroscopic. I don't know the technical reasoning or how he did that exactly, but it happened. Who knows how? Or it's just God talking to him. Either way, he was a guy who had the charisma too to lead people into killing him eventually. But before then, he had 12 dudes following him around and some women. That's a lot of people, enough for it to be overwhelming. If you're surrounded by by those people supporting you, you must have something good going on in your tool shed. He could heal people just by touching them or doing something miracle-like. And he kind of decided to do those things on his own accord. So anyway, we're not doing a little Jesus. We're not doing anything about Jesus. That was not about Jesus. That was just something that was literally just a story I made up and attributed to Jesus, which has no truth to it, except for maybe the 12 apostle thing. That, other than that, nothing about it was true. He was a carpenter, but I'm just speculating 100%, because what the hell else would I be doing? Oh, I'm just going to say true things that were taught to me? No, yeah, for a few seconds. Then I'm going to add on to them with bullshit, because that's what scientists do until somebody calls them on it, and then they get downgraded to pseudoscience. And that's what I am. I'm a pseudoscientist. I'm about 3 months in. Can I sit down for frickin'? Why do I do this standing up when I got no desire to stand? So I became enamored with the field of pseudoscience when I discovered that I have a gift that goes beyond schizophrenia. It's worse than that. It's better than that. Schizophrenia is where you can't control it. So it's better than that. It's like just a gift that is, you can't put any label to it other than it makes people not want to be around me. So it's not really like a full out gift like Jesus had. Yeah. But also Jesus, they only want to be around because of his magic anyway. So anyway, what I have is better than schizophrenia because it will turn into it probably if I just let it go. If I just believed in crazy thoughts and didn't have any ability to be like, that's just a metaphor, right? Then I think what would happen is it would eventually turn into visions that are that are impossible to distinguish. I don't know. It hasn't happened yet. The only thing that's happened is I've had experiences that would be called delusional, except for their metaphors. And by that, what do I mean? I mean that I'm having these thoughts of like inspiration and imagination of like, there's probably dead people. Let's just say for fun, not even for, it's just like something that you do. You go, okay, there's probably a lot of dead people that are still out there somewhere in the cosmos that want you to do something that they didn't get to do before they, like younger people, like people that died in their teenage years. I think about those people sometimes and I go, I could sometimes get a sense that maybe they're rooting for me to not just sit around and eat nachos all day. I think there actually is like a greater invention in it, that they are trying to get me or anybody smart enough to listen, including schizophrenics, anybody that they could get their hands on and be like, yo, you should be doing grandiose, you should at least be in pursuit of something grand. That's all I could, it's like a feeling of inspiration coming from those that are no longer with us. But is it a literal belief of like, oh, I believe this, that they're literally consciously sending signals through me? No, I don't really literally believe that. It's just kind of like fun to believe. So when does it go from fun and inspirational and artistic and whatever subjective to actually you thinking it's true? That's the beauty of it. We don't know. It just comes down to how smart you are. There's a lot of people that have schizophrenic thoughts, not literal visions and hallucinations, just delusional, grandiose thoughts. But then they are able to filter them out. But you don't want to always filter them out because they might be brilliant though. So that's the thing, is if you are getting these types of thoughts to the point where you can't really stop them, it gets harder and harder to not run with some of them and to kind of believe that maybe some of them are true. That's where it gets even more fun, because then you're playing with fire if you're doing it alone. If you're doing it completely in like a non-institutional manner, you're going to be looked at as somebody that's on a slippery slope of like, okay, so you think this is true, but you are not supported by, I don't know. I need to be more specific here, because what I'm getting at is that some people just are really brilliant. Like they're genius. Like there's such a thing as geniuses that actually can go into the depths of crazy abstractions and not lose lose sight of themselves. They stay grounded in reality. They just pull out. They're able to pull themselves back out of the rabbit hole. Yeah, that's what being smart is about, is being able to adapt to those abstractions deeply and clearly and succinctly, and pull them back and realize if they do make sense and actually validate them. Like, okay, that was a fun thought, but do they make sense? It's another thing. They might not even make sense ever. But another thing about craziness and brilliance is some people just already just have naturally the correct thoughts. I don't know. I don't know what other people think. I just know what I think. It's like intuition is what I'm starting. It's kind of the word for what I'm describing, is where you can just picture something and it's pretty accurate. It's a pretty accurate model of whatever you're thinking of. Whatever you're trying to solve, you're able to just automatically build a model that's correct. Not for everything. I'm just saying some people are more accurate than others. What's typical if you're not a genius, there's geniuses, there's highly intelligent, there's average intelligence, and we won't even talk about below average. Let's talk about average. Most people are more in the left brain category, which is a thing, still is a thing, that you specialize in one side of your brain for lateralization, for language processing. And what does that? That means verbal languages, like spoken verbal words. It means processing the words and linking them to other words. The semantics only point to more and more words. They don't point to imagery. Truly gifted people, in my opinion, you need both. You need the words that are logical on the left, self-logical with themselves, and then the right side doesn't have to be concerned with logic. It just has to be spatially gifted. If it's gifted enough, the logic will be there. The logic will be there, just that the words, you might not have words for it. So you might be perceived as not as smart because you're not as quick with the words. But the smartest people on the planet are the ones, at least in terms of invention. If you're trying to invent something or be a scientist that invents something new and not just validates existing frameworks, if you want to create, that takes spatial awareness, spatial modeling, even if it's poetry. So anyway, it's aesthetics. It's spatial. It's anything that has to do with aesthetics and not just logic linking up. Who the hell knows? They both probably have to do spatial things at some levels. It's just you don't see it as much on the left because it's surface level. That's why the downside of most people using this side of their brain to process language is they're very quick to draw conclusions because they don't model the complexities. They just go straight to the lexical semantics, the grammar. They just process the syntax, the grammar, and then what do they get after processing that? They get semantics in the form of more words. No pictures, just words. And that's not always very good because words are open to interpretation. So that always leads to more and more questions. Words should never just end in more words. To have a full model of anything that you're describing, you got to go outside the words. You got to use your imagination to actually know if something's true or not. You can't just go, okay, the language is consistent, but it doesn't say if anything else in reality is consistent. There's a thing called reality, and then there's words that describe reality. And to fully describe reality, we can never even get close to doing that. But to even try, you need to reference something outside of the language you're using to talk about things. Because what's the point of a language if it's not even in any way connected to reality? Then you're just, what are you doing? Okay, so the downside is they just number crunch and they get concrete results, but they're not always accounting for the complexities of reality, which language is not the be-all, end-all. You also gotta picture shit, because we live in a 3D universe. Language is not 3D. Sorry to lecture y'all. I'm always in a bad kind of mood when I'm doing this is because I'm not comfortable because I'm standing on a carpet that's not particularly, I'm just standing. What the hell am I doing? Second of all, I'm not energized. I'm just not comfortable. I'm not fueled. I don't have enough fuel to be talking right now. And that's always the case when I'm doing this, is because I'm doing all the heavy lifting. Nobody's like, oh, here, I'll talk for a few minutes. Well, you just sit there and relax. No, I'm the one doing all the thinking and talking. I can't just sit there and process something while somebody else talks. You'd be like, well, you were talking. I cultivated a beautiful point and also thought of the words to use to describe that point, to portray that point, to convey that point. See, that's what happens when you're doing a solo podcast. You have to be like, okay, so here's what I want to say for the next 5 seconds. And then you have to decide what words to use to say those things. And you have to buffer it out. And that thing only lasts 5 seconds. So the next time you hit a wall, it's like, oh, great, I got to do it all again. It's like you're jumping hurdles in a long country. What is it? Track and field? Country? Cross country, yes. You're doing cross country with hurdles. And I just ran out of, my buffer ran out of memory. So it had to toss away. Now it's deleting everything. Okay, now it has room to load in more shit to talk about. Okay, now it's buffering in stuff to talk about. Nothing has come across so far. Okay, so where am I at with... The reason I do this podcast is not for people to watch. It's for people that are alive after I'm dead. That's the whole point of this. Like, you might be wondering, why the hell does he do this? It's for me to say shit about what I'm doing at this time in history, because otherwise nobody would know what's going through my head. Because eventually the goal is that I will maybe have kids or something, or a charity or something will gain access to my work, and it will be preserved in a charitable organization that worships that they're funded to where the whole point of the charity is to maintain my legacy. So this will be for those scholars that work for the charity to study, to piece together my life in a biographical fashion. So there is a purpose to this, and it's for historical and for knowledge, for people to study people like me, exceptional people like me who have brains that, because I don't want people to study my freaking organs. The way they did that with Einstein was a disgrace. The way that they dissected his brain as if he was a non-human entity is a disrespect to the human capacity for intelligence. He was a human. He wasn't a reptile. You don't got to study his brain. Or at least you don't got to do it in a disrespectful way where you cut it in pieces. And it's a human brain. Okay, so I don't want people to do it with my brain, seeing as I have pretty much the same exact one as Einstein's. I just don't speak German. And, okay, so anyway, and, different time periods. Totally different people, man. But other than that, same gift. I don't know. Okay. So, that's why I'm doing this, is to document the information that comes out of my brain. To show you a little behind the curtain look. I don't even know why this is going. I should just keep this on the cloud. Okay, so anyway, enough of that. You gotta be full of yourself. The most successful people in life are also the most full of themselves. Because the reason they become full of themselves, they weren't always that way. You know, like all these successful people in their early lives, or even early in their career, they weren't stepping on people and talking as if they were big shots. No, because they didn't know yet. First, they just didn't know. Arrogance, it gets you a lot of places if you can actually back it up with the skill sets that you're talking about. So if you actually are skilled, it's good to know it. And if nobody else is tooting that horn, you're not gonna. You got to do it. Something's got to fuel you to do it. And for me, it's narcissism. So yeah. So that's how. I don't know why I brought that up. It's not relevant to what I'm about to go into. So anyway, I'm working on the first thing what am I even talking about? Okay, so I'm a pseudoscientist. That wasn't a joke. I'm actually a pseudoscientist. I am doing science. I don't even like that word. When somebody calls me a pseudoscientist or somebody that does pseudoscience, I go, don't put that label on me. I don't like the word science. So you could call me a pseudo-ishin, a pseudo whatever, pseudo-physicist, or quack, but I don't like the label scientist, because look what those guys are up to, man. I don't trust those guys. They're all about drama and like clout and like ego. They're like, if you noticed, some of them, they're very pedantic and like, oh, nope. So I don't really care. It's about the future. You can't care about what it says now on your Wikipedia page. If you're like Graham Hancock and they just, what's that word? Spray paint shit all over your graffiti, when they tag up your property. They denigrate your legacy, not legacy. Your career, they denigrate you. Your Wikipedia page says that you're a pseudoscientist. Okay, so other people have a problem with things you have said or have claimed, and enough to where they want to tarnish. I don't know. Because I don't think he's hurting anybody by saying that maybe there was a civilization 10,000 years. I don't know who he's hurting that he has to be called these. Basically, his Wikipedia page just says he's a clown. It says he's a net negative to anything. That he's just an asshole person that shouldn't exist. And that's okay. So that's what people are going to get when they look him up who've never heard of him before. They go, oh, so he's just a pseudoscientist. So, okay. So you can't be too worried about that if you're Graham Hancock, if what you're studying took place 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. Is that relevant? Does that change history that you're studying in history? Does it change the truth value? No, it just means people are jealous. There's politics is what that means. Okay. So what about the truth? How do you get to the truth? You keep going. You keep using the tools at your disposal, and that includes your imagination and your lack of mental illness and your mental illness to a degree. ADHD is a mental illness. A lot of geniuses also have ADHD, though. So, yay. Mother Nature is never really the one to blame. It's society. It's not even always society. It's codified. It's just bad code. Certain things get codified into society that means it could become stale and inefficient and wrong over time. So it must evolve, like everything else must evolve, like physics, which I don't know nothing about physics. I mean, I know a lot about classical physics, and I know very little about very little about physics. Enough to do it, enough to like actually make a video game that uses physics and math. Okay, so I know I know a little bit of physics, but not enough to call myself a physicist. Turns out it doesn't freaking matter. You don't have to have read all these textbooks or let alone get a degree in physics to understand it and to use it and to even possibly contribute to it. If the world changes, the way information flows, it won't really matter where it comes from. It matters how true it is. Because right now, we have a very bad system is where we just go by, okay, where did it come from? Oh, it's from Harvard. Then it must be true then. We just go by authority. So authority is not what it comes down to. If you've seen Ratatouille, the whole moral of that flick is that genius could come from anywhere. So we should be looking for it anywhere and everywhere, not just from the places that were built from some genius 300 years ago that's dead and everybody else is just riding their coattails, like Harvard, for example. I mean, okay, Harvard is a self-perpetuating institution that is riding its own reputation, but eventually that will corrode or erode if it doesn't continue to pump out geniuses, or if geniuses are not associated with that institution. It's all about association. People associate information with where it's coming from. Not how true it is. Just where it's coming from most of the time. That's fine. I don't give a crap. I care about the truth, and I have my own framework for detecting truth. I don't just go by Google. I mean, Google helps, but there's ways of detecting truth, which is intelligence, which is your own abilities of deductive logic, ruling out stuff that doesn't make sense until you're left with what can only make sense because you've ruled out everything else. There's actually ways of doing that just on your own time. Like it's legal to actually just sort shit out on your own. A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people just think you just have to be like bequeathed. Somebody just has to bestow these freedoms upon you as if they are like a driver's license. Like you have to go through this course. No, you could think whenever, and it's just something you could do as a hobby. You're allowed to think before you act in life. You're allowed to come to your own conclusions that are unique to you, that haven't gone through anyone else, that are just your own conclusions. You're allowed to do that. You don't have to just, it doesn't have to pass through anyone else. How you dress, how you talk. It's a tough thing for people to grasp because how you talk is like everything. It's very hard to manufacture your own speaking system. Most people just copy somebody else's delivery system. So anyway, this brings us to physics because Einstein's theory of general relativity was incomplete. I don't want to say wrong. It was just incomplete. I'm not even smart enough to just call it wrong because I haven't tested it yet fully. I haven't tested, so I can't say it's just wrong. But it's incomplete because there's no demonstrable evidence. There's no evidence for singularities. There's no way to conceive of it being logical. It's not logical. That's why they say it breaks down. So, okay, so if it breaks down inside a black hole, it's not a good theory. It's not finished yet. So we got to finish that thing and understand the particle physics involved in gravitrons or gravitons, whatever you want to call them. The curvature of space-time and mass, energy, mass, and same thing, mass, wave, particle, wave, whatever it's doing, it's making curvatures in space-time, subtle curvatures and inside of black holes when it's like so infinite, but there's nothing infinite. So what the hell are you talking about? There's nothing infinite in the universe, so that's not probably what's going on. Pretty sure the density is constant of black holes, or the Schwarzschild radius doesn't go beyond that. Once it hits the Schwarzschild radius, we don't know. We don't really know what it looks like, but we can assume it's not just a singularity, is it? If it retains its mass, how does it go to a point? How does it not also retain its structure? How does it not have any dimensions in space if it's also got the same mass? I'm waiting. Yeah, there's no answer to that because it doesn't make sense. Because it doesn't just keep going to a point. It reaches a threshold where after a certain point, it gets converted into some other particle. That particle is something we can't measure directly. We can only detect its presence indirectly through gravity and velocity of galactic nuclei, relative observation. We can't directly detect what comes out of a black hole, but we know it's there because it's what makes up every halo around every galaxy, and that stuff is called dark matter. What am I, stupid? Was I born yesterday? How am I just figuring this out? How has nobody else figured this out is the real question. How is some idiot in his attic? How is some idiot in a living room, which is now where I currently am, but how does some idiot in his treehouse thumbing through Pokemon cards while chewing on Tic Tacs and read an email on his Cybico? I don't know why I'm referencing the early 2000s. But how does this guy become the first to posit something so obvious? That, hey, maybe dark matter comes out of black holes. Maybe that's where it comes from. Maybe that's where it's created. It's created from the inside of black holes. And it comes out invisibly. It emits. It gets emitted from the black holes invisibly. That's why we can't see what's going on inside a black hole, because dark matter conveniently invisible. Just like the inside of a black hole. This is just one thought. You have to also answer for how does it escape from how does it escape if nothing can escape a black hole? I'm not saying it necessarily does escape. It might still be in there. It's just that it gets turned inside out. There's like this inside out pocket that opens up in a new dimension that we just can't see. But it's there. Now, I don't even think we have to do anything weird like that. I think it just escapes the orbit of the black hole. It escapes the attractive forces of it because of the properties of what happens to these particles. We just don't know. We don't know what gravity is. We don't know what particles cause gravity. And if there is a particle, we just don't understand its properties. So maybe something occurs that changes the polarity of the dark matter particles as they get, and that causes them to no longer be gravitationally bound. And then it just spreads out, or maybe it gets shot out at super high relativistic speeds. Who knows? We know it gets there somehow. It gets way beyond. And it's what determines the size of the galaxy. So does it go? So it must not have that much time. It must be going at a pretty relativistic speed. And by that I mean close to the speed of light, like a percentage of the speed of light, substantial percentage of the speed of light, like a jet. We see that black holes do that all the time. They shoot visible jets of matter. So now all I'm saying is it also shoots out invisible jets of dark matter. And then that slowly pulls itself back in with gravity, and the spin also corresponds with the mass of a black hole. The spin of a galaxy comes from the same forces of that black hole. In other words, black holes are what give birth to galaxies and what recycle them and kill, like eat them back up. They give birth and they consume. Like a spider consumes its own web and then lays a new one. Yeah. Black holes are like spiders. You didn't know that, but hey, sorry to be the one to break it to you that there's a Spider-Man at the center of pretty much every galaxy. At least that's how it formed, with a massive black hole. Some just have intermediate-sized black holes. Still, it's a black hole. Who cares? Still does the same thing. It has an event horizon. Converts. There's a conversion process at play. It's not just storing it up like a fucking squirrel. Oh, let me store up all this matter forever and just not do shit. Fuck with it. Yeah, oh, that's a really good way to just exist. Yeah, that's a good idea, nature. Nah, nature does not just delete data or store it for safekeeping like a hoarder. Nature is not mentally ill. So it's a translation process. Everything is a translation process. Nothing is statically just storing information. Maybe you think it is. It's not. Look it up. There's such a thing as entropy in any closed system that stores information. Duh, I'm not even I'm a pseudoscientist, and even I know this. I even know some real science. And so, and I'm still just, so to be a real scientist, you have to be really dumb. Because even pseudoscientists know this shit. I'm just a pseudoscientist, and I just explained how galaxies are formed. And at least on some level, what happens inside a black hole, which nobody else has ever even nobody else even fucking tried to go against Einstein, because you're afraid of it. You're afraid of going against Einstein because they're not as smart as him. Yeah, he was rare. He was extremely gifted and a very fucking 1 in a billion. But also not really. It's just that some people don't realize that they should be doing that fucking kind of work. What time is it? That's the thing, is there's a fucking boatload of geniuses that are potentially as brilliant as Einstein. They just aren't told, hey, you should do fucking science. Because they're fucking surrounded by fucking idiots. So if you know that you're smart enough to understand, to intuit things visually, that's what intelligence comes down to on a grandiose, inventive level. Not in every, we need the left brain people, obviously. They're called women. Men are usually the ones that have to actually model the universe. Women are models. Men could be hot. Not saying they can't be hot. I'm also not saying women can't be scientists. I'm saying that would be an emergent property. That's not going with the norm. And that's perfectly fine. Like I was saying earlier, things don't always go with the norm. Verbiage is just an abstract way of describing something in reality. Things in reality are way more complex than any words can be used. Than any words. I'm not good at using words, but I am good at picturing the thing that I want to have happen. And that's flying to other planets, taking a pics. I was going to say piss, but I changed it to pics for some stupid. So you're going to say you're going to take a piss on other planets to show them who's boss. And then sail away on your... That'd be fucking hilarious if you're just chilling. If you're just chilling on some other planet, doing your job, like laboring, everything's mundane, and you see a UFO just plop down hastily, not even give a crap if it's being noticed, and then some guy just hastily comes out of the crap before it even finishes, before the ladder even finishes coming out, before it even fully makes contact. The thing is still coming out like a convertible, like the top is still going down. It's like, it's still, the sequence is not it, but the dude just like, fuck this, and he just drops his fucking pants. You see this fucking alien for the first time. Not only that, his dick you see his dick. His soft dick. And you're just blown away by the technology, by the implications of the fact that there's alien life, and then the fact that they also act like humans. They also just stop just to piss, and then get right back in. It closes before it's even sealed off, before the door's even closed. It's already taken off. The guy's got places to be. That's what I'm picturing. I don't give a fucking shit if my words don't do a little dance for you in your syntactical framework of a brain. We all have them. Everybody has their own native language. It's a song I'm working on. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be a fucking banger when we go back to where classical hymnal type music. Yeah, it's going to be a big hit in the educational charts on the preschool K through 5 charts. It's going to be charting K through 5. Because it's true, everybody has their own fucking native language. They might as well do a song about it in the key of whatever the key that would. Okay. So, is that it? I'm bored. See, that's the thing about, another thing about being a genius, which I'm not saying I am. I'm saying I understand what is, I sympathize with that. So another thing about it is you get bored very quickly. Because you're smarter than everything. Like, okay, the next best thing is out. Got it. I'm fully up to date on the literature. Next. But also, it's also that you have the ability to create brilliant things. So you could be talking about something that you created and still have the same attitude. You can be like, oh yeah. So I cured cancer. Yeah, that was a good thing to do. Like when I was young. Yeah, I moved on from that. Yeah, I was a kid. Yeah, I'm not impressed. Okay. Oh yeah. Like that's what being a genius also. That's really what it is. You're never really ever impressed for very long because you get it. You got it. It's like, okay, give me more DMT. Show me the next strip. Show me the next technology that has yet to blow my mind because I already thought of it. That's what being a genius is. Like, okay, well, I already predicted that all this shit's going to happen. So all I'm going to get out of this is confirmation of what I already knew, just the specifics of like, oh, okay, that's the color. You went with that color for the gravity measurement device, gravity ruler. I would have gone with blue. That's cool. I already knew that was going to happen. Oh, that's how I did it? By finding out which molecules resonate with gravity on a macroscopic level and just looking at it in a way that we never looked at it before, by detecting that it formed a pattern that synchronized with gravity waves, and we never realized it. And then we magnified that to a way that we could just easily measure it in any handheld device. We just didn't know that it was being translated up to that level. And I already knew all that shit. Well, thank you for telling me. That's what it feels like to be a genius. To be like a real, like Jimmy Neutron. Yeah. You just go, okay, well, I really kind of had plans to do that myself. But that's cool to see that it worked the way that I already knew it would. Because all geniuses are the same person. They all see things for the way they are. They all think of the same thing. They all come to the same conclusions because there's only so many ways you can pin a tail on a donkey. So they go, yeah, okay, you bend it this way. Whoa, no one's ever done that before, but it connects in a new way. And now we could go anywhere we want without having to go the long way because this one guy just did a loop-de-loop. He just tied it all together in a knot that we never knew existed before. Yeah, that's what it is. And they could all detect when somebody, like, it takes genius to also see genius. So if you think somebody's not a genius, maybe they're not. More than likely, if somebody is called a genius, they probably are. If enough people call somebody a fucking genius, they probably fucking are. You just can't see it. That means you're just not very smart. Like anything that is popular probably has something really good about it going on. Something efficient is going on there that's like clever. I don't know why I'm doing this. I have no idea what this symbolizes, like looking through a microscope or some shit. I don't know. But another genius was Isaac Newton. He invented the mirror telescope, which is something that we just take for granted. It's like, yeah, it's a telescope. It's got a mirror. So, before that, they just used lenses that bent light, refracted light. See, you didn't get the full picture. You didn't see, it was distorted. He was like, no, just use a curved mirror. That'll give you the same picture. It'll zoom in. It'll magnify without the distortion. How did he figure that out? By experimenting himself, by poking a hole in his freaking house. He poked a fucking hole. He chiseled. See, that's what a real scientist does in the 1600s. These days, you get laughed at for doing that. But that's what he did. He had poked a fucking hole through his house and just let the sunlight come in, and he narrowed it down. He got it to where he could detect. He refracted the light with a lens, with a prism. He's like, oh, so colors are related to light. The colors actually come from the sun, like the light, or the colors are in sunlight. White light actually contains all the colors. Cool. Nobody knew that before. Cool. Also, here's a cool thing about looking at things from far away. Here, let me just invent the telescope. So you know, we would have figured that out, but he was the first to do it because he was smart enough to not only be smart, it's not just that he was born smart, he also had the wherewithal to pursue that gift. So that does take being full of yourself. It's by being like, okay, I have some kind of gift. A lot of other people can't see it. It's still there. I know it's there. I'm not stupid. I'm going to foster it until it is undeniable. Yeah, that's what you do. You can't just wait for somebody else to be like, oh, okay, now it's undeniable. Now you could do it. No, you have to do it before they say it's before they even give you any ability, before they give you any credit whatsoever. You have to believe it yourself. You have to be full of yourself. While maintaining the ability to see the genius in others. Because Einstein wouldn't have been able to do what he did without other geniuses, like to actually finalize. He wasn't even able to do Schwarzschild radius. That's why it's named after Schwarzschild, another guy. There's a lot of other geniuses out there. And the problem with that is that they are not getting the positive reinforcement they deserve or the motivation to do anything even close to genius. So they just become drug addicts. Because when you have a creative mind and you're not using it, you got to take drugs. That's just how it works. If you don't have a creative mind and you're not thirsty for expressing yourself, you don't need to take drugs. Just be help other people. Just be a nurse. You don't got to take drugs if you're not creative. Help other people who are creative not kill themselves with their creativity. Because being creative, one of the downsides is nobody knows what's going on inside your head. And also, you don't really like being alive. It just makes people live dangerously because they want something new to happen. So they take risks. So anyway, this is quite a boring show for me. I don't know about anyone. I don't know about anyone else. So the news is good. That we have good news, which is Elon is considering purchasing MSNBC, which is not that interesting at all. I don't know why I'm talking about it. It's a cable. So we don't, who cares about cable networks? It's all, you got to own the main networks that actually broadcast over the air for free, not just on cable. That would be NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox. You want the free channels, not some cable. If you own a free channel and if you invent a new technology that allows for communication that's higher fidelity, guess what? You'll be in charge of the media. It's whoever's first. And then you got to abide by regulators. Elon now owns the entire U.S. government, so he is well poised to be the next media emperor, which is weird, man. Because then we're going to have, like, memes about Dogecoin on, I don't know, mainstream news. And that's kind of weird. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't like Dogecoin because it was just too easy of a thing to predict. It just was a too easy thing to get money from. It's like, okay, if you put $1 million in Dogecoin in 2000 and let's say 18, it'd be worth $1 billion, probably. That's too easy. I like making my money. I like working for my money. That's why I'm doing this. This is a lot of work and no pay and not a lot of money. And by work, I do mean the part where I have to edit it and like look at myself later. Oh man, do I... Okay. This has been a bad episode, but only the end. Okay.